So Graham, what do coaches learn from the spring game, especially with your guys? I mean, some of them haven't played in front of crowds of significance, and not that they'll be packed, but
I think that's the thing that you're trying to see the most is how they perform with people in the seats, and that's a different feeling. And like you said, for some of the guys, it's something they don't have much experience in, and so I think that you can get a lot out of that. Obviously, from a schematic standpoint, a lot of times we haven't really talked about it, but you go in and a lot of times you're really vanilla and do some things that isn't necessarily everything you have. So it's from that standpoint, hopefully they can execute. You want them to be able to execute because it's probably going to be pretty basic. But you want to see, I kind of think the way their composure and the way they perform with people in the seats, and so I'm looking forward to that. Should be fun, and like I said, it'll be good to see how they play.
Along this question about learning, what have you learned about the guys that you're coaching right now? 14 practices in.
Yeah, it's Fred at 14, and I do think we've grown, and as a unit we've grown a lot. Obviously, in the quarterback room, we're continuing to grow every day, I think, and I think that we've shown flashes of being really good, and we've shown flashes of where we got to get better, and as a unit and as a position, and so. And that was kind of my message to him, even after practice today, is just hey, we got to be consistently good, consistently do our job, you know what I mean? Because, like I said, we can do some really special things at time, and then we can do some things where you're just like, what did you just see there, and some of that's just experience, and like I said, I think that, like I've said since I've been here, that you can't replace experience, and you can spend a lot of time with them in a meeting room and sit down with them and show them a lot of things, but until you're out there on the field and see it, like it's sometimes it takes reps on the field, actually living it to to learn or really grasp something. And so every day I think they're seeing more. Obviously, as more stuff goes in from the defense side of the ball, I think they're doing some good things. So they've seen a lot from the defense has shown quite a few things to them, and so the more they see, the better, in my opinion. Because hopefully they get used to saying, well, this is an unusual look, or maybe this is something I haven't seen, but still not be able to panic and still execute, and I think that's important. So, but that's the key is we've shown flashes of being really good, and we've shown flashes of just head scratching too, and so if we can consistently play at a high level and do our job and play at the level that they're at when things are going good, then we have a chance to be really special.
Have you got the entire package in, and are you working on twists yet, or is that in the fall?
We'll throw a few wrinkles in, you know what I mean? But we're trying to really get to where we can execute the base, and execute that at a really high level. And but every practice we'll maybe put just one little twist in or put something in that's, hey, let's try to execute this. And some of it is, hey, let's get it on tape, and some of it is, hey, throw something new at it, especially for the quarterbacks. Throw something new at them and see what they can do, see how they learn, and see how they process it, And so, because of that, sometimes things aren't going to be pretty when you put a new wrinkle in because it's the first time at it. But again, the more reps they get at anything, whether it be like base package or kind of a twist, the better they get at it. And so it's been good for them, and it's been a good spring for us.
You mentioned being vanilla. How paranoid are coaches during the spring game when it's televised, fans in the stands, you're 75 miles from the team you're going to play in the opener, those type of things?
Yeah, I don't really get paranoid about that stuff, but I know a lot of people do, and there's some people probably here that do. So I don't know what, like I said, we'll have a discussion and figure out what we want to put out there. How vanilla we want to be or how much we want to show, and so I'm sure that'll be a discussion over the next couple of days. Like I said, I'm good either way. I think that the key is like, hey, let's go execute no matter what we call, you know what I mean? And whether we throw the whole package out there or whether we just run two plays, like let's execute those two plays at a high level, or let's execute them all at a high level. And that's the key for us is go out there and do your job and do it. Like I said, do it at a high level, and if you do, we'll move the ball up and down the field, we feel like,
Neil mentioned something that was interesting. He said with your terminology and your schemes, you let some of the calls stay the same with the guys up front because it was easier for 5 guys to do what they do, more comfortable than you introducing something and having them learn from the scratch. Walk me through that a little bit. What's your thought process there behind that? And this is talking about in the run game.
We got a lot of experience coming back we got a lot of experience coming back up there, and so there's no point in like making them, if you're going to ask them to do the same thing they do on this, then just call it this, you know what I mean, or whatever the case may be. Was kind of the thought there, and so we changed a couple words, but like I said, for me, it's not real change. Inside zones, regardless of what you want to call it, you know what I mean. And so we can call it this or we can call it that, but if they already know it is this and we're not changing anything on it, why change it for the sake of change? It was kind of the thought there, and protection, same sort of deal. They did some good things in it. They really understood it, especially, and I think at every level, but we put a lot on the center, and so if he already has a good grasp for what he's doing, and when he hears words, has a good grasp for what that means, there's no point changing it just for the sake of change. Now, where we had to, where it meant something or where it mattered, if we had to change it, we did change it. But where we could keep the same, we tried to keep the same as much as possible, especially for those guys up front, because, like I said, there's a lot of guys that have played together a lot, and they already knew or they already had a feel for a lot of things, and so what we could keep the same, we tried to keep the same.
Neil said what your system is simple enough for your guys to learn and play fast, but complicated enough to give defenses problems. That pretty much kind of smile. Is that pretty much the air raid?
That's the goal, yeah. I've said this before, I've probably said it here before. I think the air raid's a philosophy of like not trying to do everything, but like what you said would be a decent philosophy of what I think the air raid is. It's simple enough that like your guys there's no thinking involved in your guys or no hesitation in your guys, but for a defense it looks different or presents as something different, you know what I mean? But especially for that quarterback, it's the same play. And so, there's plays that we can run, and for us, it's the same play no matter what formation, how we dress it up. For that quarterback, the reads don't change. But if the defense was drawn on a board, they'd probably draw it as 10 different plays, And so the simplicity of it for our guys, okay, they see the signal. It's like, okay, well, let's roll. They can play fast. They don't have to think about it. But again, if you're preparing for it, it looks a lot different. And so that's kind of the thought of what we do. I think that's the thought of most people that have come from the air raid offense or from the Mike Leach tree. Is it's not necessarily we all look the same or we're all running the exact same offense, but the philosophy is similar. And I think that's why a lot of people that have come from him have had success. Whether it be, because you can look at Dana now or when he was here at Oklahoma State or Lincoln or Cliff. Sonny Dykes was with Leach for a while, myself, and then Coach Leach still today. Like, if you put the tape on, you're like, that's not the same offense. You know what I mean? Like, no one's going to say those same offense. You might see some similar concepts every so often, but you would never say, like, that's the same offense on any of those, But at the same time, I think that if you talk to each one of those people and you say, well, what's the air raid mean or what have you taken from Coach Leach? I think it would just be the philosophy of like, hey, you better have an identity. You can't try to do everything. There's a lot of great football plays out there, and that's why I tell our guys all the time. It's not like we have some magic scheme. We're just going to try to figure out what we can be good at and be really, really good at it, and not try to do everything.
Last thing here, where does freedom play into the individual rules that you have? I mean, it seems like this offense, you do have some freedom to be able to read defenses. There is some of that built in, right?
Oh, yeah. And the further along you go, I think the more freedom you can give them because they have a better grasp of what's going on. And I think that, like from the receiver standpoint, for instance, like you got to understand where you need to be and when you need to be there. And that's the thing is if you give them too much freedom sometimes, and coaching receivers for Coach Leach is where I really, kind of saw this and learned some of this or the receivers say, well, I'm wide open. And I'm like, well, I've stood where that quarterback stood right there, and he's not over there yet. So you can be open all you want, but unless you get open at this time, you're not going to get the football. You know what I mean? And so that's what I mean. Like the longer you're in the system and the better feel they get for that, I think the more freedom you can give them. And it's like, well, Coach, I was open. Well, his eyes were over there still, so it doesn't matter, So that's the key is kind of getting a grasp of where do I need to be and when do I need to be there, and then kind of give them some freedom to do that, and understand also getting that quarterback and those receivers on the same page as far as like, hey, if this is kind of the picture, he's going to find this grass. You know what I mean? And there's a lot that goes into that. Obviously, that sounds pretty simple, and I think at some point it gets pretty simple, but it, that's why I think you have to get a ton of reps on it, because regardless of a defense, there's usually going to be a similar picture at some point where people are, and you can work off of it and find ways to attack it. And if the quarterback and that receiver can get on the same page, you can be really efficient doing it. And so that's the key, is get a lot of reps at it and get them used to it, and get the receiver and the quarterback seeing it and understanding it the same way. And then from a quarterback standpoint, I always try to tell them, like, if you see something, attack it. You know what I mean? And I think the longer they're in the system, or the better grasp they get for it, the more comfortable they get doing that, as far as like, hey, if I call it and you don't like it, call something else. I don't care, and just make it work, If it doesn't work, I'm going to tell you that was really stupid. If it does work, I'll say good play, But it's we give them some freedom. Like I said, if you got leverage or especially like the first read or something, we got bad leverage for what he's running, we'll change the route. You know what I mean? Or get us into this or get us into that. And like I said, the longer you're in it, I think the more freedom you can give them. I think early on, a lot of times, like right now, it's like, hey, if we have this called, this is your primary read, yeah, just talk to him. Just worry about changing him. I think if you're in it for 3 or 4 years, I think you get to the point where it's like, hey, if you don't like the, just call what you want to call. You can change the whole play instead of just changing individual routes. So we give them freedom. I think that, again, the longer you're in it, the more freedom you kind of see in it. But like I said, we're getting there, and our guys are doing a good job, or the quarterbacks, I think, are doing a good job of seeing right now, like, the individual stuff that we need them to see, as far as like, well, I got leverage there, I'm just going to attack that. I don't have to change everything, but I can change that and go get it and still keep the integrity of the play. So they're doing a good job of that. And like I said, we actually threw a touchdown today because Nico saw good leverage, attacked it, and threw a touchdown on it, which was a really good play by him today.
Graham, all the stuff that you make sound very simple through your experience, I wonder, like, do you look for stuff that's familiar, that's worked at different spots, and then is that maybe counterproductive to trying to figure out what may work best for who you have? Because it's always different, I'm guessing.
For sure.
If it's so small a package that it may just plug and play pretty well too.
Yeah. No, you're fine. But if we, like, I think that what you said is right on. Like, you got to figure out what works with your group at that time. You know what I'm saying? And if you look at my 3 years at USC, we looked very different at times, because what gave us the best chance to win, we felt like, was different with the group of guys we had. I think that first year when I was out there, we were super deep at receiver, and we played a ton of 10 personnel and spread it out and threw it, all over the place, and did some really good things. And then by year 3, because of, a bunch of different factors, but that receiver room was really, really thin. And so we played in almost exclusively 11, and then some 12 personnel even, like extended series in 12, because that's what our personnel dictated, and that's what gave us the best chance to win football games at the time. You know what I mean? That's what we felt like. So I do think, there's stuff that we believe in, there's stuff that we can run, there's stuff that, like, hey, that we should be really, really good at this. But I also think you have to tailor it to your personnel and your team at that time. And I think that that's a great thing for spring, is you can get a lot of reps at some different stuff and see, hey, we're really good at this and we're not very good at this. So maybe throw this out. If you're not very good at it, throw it out and say, well, we'll maybe try it again next spring, or see if our personnel fits this a little better, and then get back to it. So that's what, like I said, there's things that I'll probably always run that I think that any team can execute, but then there's some stuff that's like, well, we're really good at this here and we weren't very good at it there, or we were really good at it there and we aren't very good at it here. Sometimes it's the quarterback, you know what I mean? Like, they have a really good feel for certain plays. And if they do, you're going to call it more, because if that quarterback likes it, it usually works a lot better, even when it shouldn't. So I think that the package changed based on your personnel and who you have out there and what you have in the room. So, but you just got to figure out what you can execute at a high level and go try to do it.
Do you find similarities with what you have and who you have right now anywhere in the past, or is that even vulnerable because of who you may bring in over the summer that could change things completely?
Well, I think that with where college football is right now, I think that everywhere is going to be a constantly changing. It seems there's always going to be a constantly changing roster right now with the NIL and the transfer portal kind of hitting at the same time. It's kind of changed the game of college football. So I think that the roster will be evolving. But I think that's going to be the case moving forward unless they change roles. That your roster will constantly be evolving. So, but I do think like the bulk of the team is, you hope, there for the spring, and so you can get a good feel for what you have. I love our receiver room right now. We could, we don't have a ton of bodies in there, and so we've had to, do some things like try to figure out, hey, are we good out of 12? Are we good out of 11? Are we good at, playing some 10 when we can, and kind of figure out what gives us our best chance, what's our best 11 to get out there, and when those 11 are out there, what's our best stuff. And so we've been able to play with that a little bit this spring. Again, I think always in spring ball from now on, your numbers are going to be a little lower than you're used to, because there's a bunch of freshmen that haven't got here yet, and you're probably going to lose some to the portal. So after fall every year. So I think that the roster's a little smaller, but at the same time, like I said, I do think we've been able to play in a bunch of different personnels and see what personnels fit us and see what plays fit us. We've tweaked some stuff from years, some things in the past, or from years, some things we've done in the past that our guys are executing at a really high level, which has been fun. It's been fun to see, like, well, we can put a little tweak on this, and kind of when you get to a new place, it's fun because you got a bunch of new ideas. And my whole thing is, like, new ideas are great, but if we're going to put a new idea in, what are we not going to run? Or what are we not very good at if we're going to place it, if we are good at that, to replace it with? And that's kind of been the balancing act of the spring, I think.
Where's the most growth been after 14 practice, would you say?
I don't know if it's growth, but I think that having an offensive line that's played as many snaps as they've played, that's been fun to be a part of. And I think that, if you could build a football team, I think most people would tell you you start up front, and if you have a quarterback and some guys up front, like, you got a chance to be successful, because if you're really good up front, it makes everything else easier in the run game and the pass game, and so having an experienced offensive line that's played a lot of games together and have seen a lot of things has been really fun. So like I said, I don't know if it's the most growth there, but I think that group is really, really far along.
Consistency, maybe?
Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it. They're the most consistent, and they work well together. They work extremely hard. They were great this off season, so I was interested to see what it would look like this spring, because all off season, when all you're able to do is see them work out and run and stuff like that, you say, man, this is a great unit, just the way they work. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're always that translates to them being great football players on the field just because they work hard. It gives you best chance, but that doesn't always work. And in here, because of the experience they have and the way they work, and the talent level they have, to be honest with you, like, that's been a cool combination to see and kind of watch a group come together and really be a consistently good unit. So I think they've really done a good job, and there's something we can build around.
Coach, thank you for your time.
Yep.